All right, chat. Since the very first video that I put on my channel, I have had so many people request the no clip documentary. I don't fully understand its greatness, but I have had a lot of people request the no clip documentary. The most requested, hey, you should watch this video, is no clip. It's got like 1 million views, and I'm like, okay, it's got 1 million views for a reason, and a lot of people are asking for it, so it's like, obviously there's got to be something there, right? So I was like, I'm going to watch it on a day that I can plan for it. Today, we are going to watch the no clip documentary. It's about 50 minutes long. Get some snacks. This is going to be a long-ass video. I promise that I would do it. So that is what we're going to do. Let's go. Let's get it. Get comfy.
Square is buried deep into the culture of Japan. Originally a spin-off from Masafumi Miyamoto's father's powerline construction firm, for over 30 years its games have helped power the rise of Japanese games development. There are no shortage of games that live under the Square Enix banner, but none as big as Final Fantasy. From our Western perspective, there's an air of mythos around the company. The accepted truth behind the series' title is that it was named Final Fantasy as it was Square's make-or-break game to avoid impending bankruptcy.
So like Final Fantasy was supposed to be like the final... It was do or die, and that was like their final game they would put out, and then they put out like 1,000 more, so the irony in that.
And even if the real answer has more to do with creating an acronym that could be pronounced by both Eastern and Western audiences, it's that first story that gets told. That's the legacy of this series. Stories about adventures that get passed from generation to generation, as nearby as the arcades of Akihabara and as far as the playgrounds of Europe. As the Final Fantasy series has moved from numeral to numeral, there have been high points and low, but with each new game comes the promise of a new story, a new myth. The story of what happened with Final Fantasy.
There we go. All right, those who are watching the VOD later, we're making an adjustment here.
Fantasy XIV is one such myth. What we know about it comes from old reviews, archived message board threads, and through conversations with those who were there. The reason for this is that the original version of Final Fantasy XIV doesn't exist anymore.
Burned to the ground.
Unlike the vast majority of other old games, there is no way of playing it. It was redacted, painted over. Where once stood a game that threatened to sink the Final Fantasy brand forever, now stands the second most popular subscription MMO in the world. And as the years pass us, the myth of that original version and its incredible redemption story are at risk of disappearing. How did it all happen? How did the same studio that shipped a broken mess turn it all around in 2 years? Why did they make the decision to keep the old version still alive while secretly working on a brand new game? And how did they manage to make all of this, the redesign and rebirth, part of the game's lore? We knew this was a story worth telling, not only for those who were there to see it all go down, but for the millions of you who have never heard about this, who never knew the extraordinary lengths the development team went to save this game. So we did just that. Pack your bags, friends. No Clip is heading to Tokyo.
You have my sub, brother.
Welcome to Shinjuku, Tokyo, home of Godzilla, restaurants full of dancing robots, and Square Enix, one of the most prolific video game companies in the world.
Yes.
For the past few months, I've been playing catch-up with this story, playing the latest version of the game, talking to players, and watching community retrospective series like the Speakers Network's fantastic fall and rise of Final Fantasy.
I've been watching their video. I need to finish that series, by the way.
Sure we asked the right questions when we sat down with the team. During our time here in Shinjuku, we're going to talk to everyone from the engineers who worked on the original game to localization leads, community managers.
Oh, this is more than just like an outside recollection. They're actually interviewing the people like from Square Enix. Oh shit, I didn't know. The quality just jumped up even higher. Holy shit.
And even the CEO of the company, all to allow them the opportunity to tell their side of this fascinating story.
The fall and rise of Final Fantasy XIV happened in real time in front of millions of people around the world. But we wanted to know about this story from an entirely new perspective, from inside the corporate machine that made it happen, that led to its terrible launch and ultimately its incredible rebirth.
My name is Michael Christopher Koji Fonks. I am the English localization lead for Final Fantasy XIV. And my middle name being Koji, it's not something I gave myself. It's a name my father gave me. My father was stationed in Japan for 2 years in the Navy when he was young. Went back to the States. My mom had me. They wanted to give me a Japanese name. The family was having none of that, so they kind of stuck it in the middle name. But then they always called me Koji, and so I guess the joke was on the rest of the family. My dad being in the Navy didn't really learn a lot about Japan other than he really liked Japan, but didn't learn any of the language. So
I feel like Koji, I know a lot about Yoshi P so far. I feel like Koji is the one that I've had least time with, but like he's really, really cool, but I just haven't had time to know a lot about him. But this is very, very awesome to hear more about him, though. Okay, so do you guys know Metal Gear Solid? David Hayter is was the voice of Solid Snake. He also speaks Japanese. He kind of had the same thing too. He grew up in Japan. He's fluent in English and Japanese, so like I think that kind of helped him during, like maybe that helped him in the recording process with Konami or whatever. Most relative thing I can think of in my head of like you're English but you're born and you're raised in Japan, and it'd be really cool to be like bilingual like that. That's really cool.
I always knew that my name was Japanese, but beyond that, I really didn't know anything about Japan. But there was always that little seed in there. And then when I got into high school, there's a Japanese class, and I like games. Oh, they make games in Japan.
They do.
They let me study Japanese. If I study Japanese, I can play all those cool Japanese games that never come out over in America. And it kind of just snowballed from there. When I graduated from high school, I took a trip to Japan for 3 weeks, homestay type of thing, and I fell in love with it. And during that period, I got to visit a lot of schools and a lot of English classes in those schools. And I thought, wow, I know English, I could do this, this will be easy. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I studied a couple years at a university in America, then transferred over to Japan, started over 4 years at a university in Japan.
Wow.
Got my teaching license, and yeah.
It's hard work being a teacher.
Yes, I mean, I loved it, but I mean, it was very draining, and that's why pretty much after you'd go to school 6 in the morning for morning basketball practice, because I was the basketball coach, because as my principal said, hey, you're tall, you're the basketball coach.
Oh no.
And you'd get into classes.
Got voluntold.
I'd have my homeroom class, then I'd have 6 or 7 other classes teaching, then you'd have after school. All of a sudden it's, oh, there's after school basketball, and then you'd get home and you'd correct. So I was really always at school every day. It was very draining, and I would go home and I would play
FF11.
It was how I was able to relax, and being able to go into my little room and turn off the lights and put on my headphones and get into that world of Vana'diel was,
oh my god, the interface,
escape from the stress. And
damn, it's so old.
And it just happened to be one day I was online checking for 11 related information, and I saw that Square Enix was looking for a translator, and it just kind of, wow, that would be really cool.
That would be cool though. Hell yeah, man. That's awesome.
Koji wasn't alone. Final Fantasy XIV was launched in 2010, but the story of this game starts 8 years earlier with the launch of Final Fantasy XI, Square's first MMO, the early days of online. Many of the team who worked on 14 started on 11. One of those was Yoshida San, who joined the company in 1999 to build a network infrastructure for this fledgling MMO.
自分はネットワークとサーバー担当で入っていて、なので一番最初にやっていたのが、当時
I played with the network adapter for the PS2. I had Resident Evil Outbreak. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, so like I played like Resident Evil Outbreak on the PS2, and we only could afford dial-up at the time. And even for all of its flaws, like that was my first online experience, and it was just incredible. I loved that game dearly, dude. Outbreak is a very niche game, but like, and the dial-up connection didn't make anything easier. And I knew FF11 existed at the time, but I just didn't understand it. I wasn't into it at the time. Knowing now, I wish I could have gone back and like actually gotten it, but it's just kind of cool that the PS2 was able to do that at the time. And it was pushing the console. It really was. It's just incredible. Like just to see how far we've come.
PlayStation 2で初めて、厳密にはドリームキャストがその前にあるんですけれども、PlayStation プラットフォームとしてはオンライン要素が入った初めての時期だったので、PlayStation 2でネットワークを作るために、TCP/IP のドライバーを作ったりとか、まだ当時モデム通信の時代だったんで、PPP 通信とか、あと ADSL がちょうど普及し始めた時期だったんで、まあ、ADSL の認証として使う PPPoE とかっていうその本当にネットワークの下の部分、まあ、今だとあんまし誰も書かないようなところを書くっていう担当で入社してました。
まあEU に関して言うとね、まあ、スクエアエニックスって言いますか、スクエアが初めて、まあ、オンラインのあれだけの規模の、MMORPG 日本でやるってのはもう本当初めてだったんで、いやもう正直いろんなことがありましたよ当時ね。こんな言っちゃっていいのかな？言っちゃっていいの？OK なの？あ、いいんだ。
Oh my god。
まずね、どういうことがあったかというと、まあ、あの時はMMO とかね、海外で例えばウルティマとかそういった先行事例あるんで、まあ基本的に PC ですよね。
PC was the place to go to.
コンシューマーでやるなんてもう無謀の極みだとかってね、もうたくさん。
I bet it was. Yeah, PC was the market for online multiplayer at the time.
ハードディスク、BB キットなんかもですね、もう何台出すんだとか、そういうの吸ったもんだして、いろんなことがありましたんで、まあほとんど不可能だとかでよく言われてましたよ、実際には。成功なんて。
11 was my first MMO. I hadn't played one before. I remember purchasing the PlayStation.
Is 11 still online? It's been shut down, right? Is there any kind of like fan legacy servers kept around, like kind of like classic WoW was, like when Nostalgus?
Into broadband unit because they were all sold out. I ended up paying double on like some Yahoo auction or something like that. Ridiculous, but I had to play it. We got a new internet connection. We were on a regular modem at that time, but because we needed a new modem, we had to upgrade to ISDN.
That was the time they were
28.
That's the time that broadband was becoming way more prominent. Yeah, it was harder to get.
Completely new to me, but fascinating.
Wait, 11 is still alive? Wait, how? So Final Fantasy 11. Wait, okay. Final Fantasy XI is still live. The original servers are kept by Square Enix are still up. Though they don't receive any updates, they're just, oh my god, holy shit. And it's how many active players are in 11 right now? Wait, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? What the, dude, are you kidding me? This is great. I'm not upset. This is incredible. Wait, where are we? Okay, 2020. It's, bro, are you fucking kidding me? 32,000. There's no way. Dude, if they can keep that many people playing Capcom, you better just reopen the Outbreak servers. Or at least Outbreak Remaster for PC. People want to play it, by the way. Oh my god. Wait, and it's still getting updates? A humble 250K. Oh my god. I am blown away right now. Holy shit. That's incredible, man. Show me more. I need to know more now.
Ever since then, I've, been into MMOs. That was the gateway drug for me, going in from FF11 and then trying, some of the Western MMOs as well, getting into World of Warcraft, seeing the differences between the two.
Personally, I think it's very...
Yeah, Capcom should open the Monster Hunter old servers. I had Monster Hunter for PS2, like the first game on PS2. I played online, and like, what I wouldn't give to just play the first game in its glory with online capabilities. Like a remaster, whatever. I don't care. Like, just give me... Monster Hunter was one of my favorite games. What I wouldn't do to go back then.
Different, here in Japan from the Western market because, yeah, it is for everyone in the globe. It's very first MMORPG on the console, PlayStation 2. And also, it was the first ever cross-platform MMO between PlayStation 2 and the Xbox 360. The obvious one is the most Japanese people don't really like to chat in public.
Right.
So, in the world, there's a lot of characters, but it's very quiet because people are using a tell instead of say or shout. And then, but
it's a communication bridge.
To the Western world, game world, every single one is shouting around. So yeah, that's a huge difference.
While in the West, you have your EverQuests and you had your Ultima Online.
I remember EverQuest, yeah.
In Japan, there was none of that. And then, so Final Fantasy XI was really one of the first MMOs in Japan. And so getting to work with basically the pioneers of the Japanese MMO was really exciting. On the other hand, you could also say that it was possibly kind of a curse in the sense that they were all doing their own thing.
I could see that.
They had their vision of what an MMO should be and what a Japanese MMO should be. And then me, again, not having played an MMO before, getting on this team and thinking, okay, this is an MMO, and translating away and working in that project, I kind of, started thinking, okay, this is what an MMO is, this is what an MMO is. Yeah. And then that one day I start playing WoW and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Seeing the differences between the two and saying like, okay, what I thought was the norm in Final Fantasy XI, you know, the grinding for 20 hours to go up one level and then only to have your level drop when you know,
pulled too many crabs
and it kills you and you've lost 5 hours work. Like, I thought that was normal. And then you're like, oh, that's not normal, is it? The Japanese base game, Final Fantasy XI.
The Dark Souls of MMOs.
Had already released. And they were working on the first expansion pack, Rise of the Zalart. I was part of the team that was working to get the base game and Rise of Zalart all translated before the Japanese Rise of Zalart was finished, so we could all release at the same time.
Right. Did you get it on time?
I got it on time. I haven't missed a deadline yet. That's one thing I'm proud of.
Final Fantasy XI was a huge success for Square Enix. It established a concurrent user base of around 250,000 players for years. It was the most profitable Final Fantasy game ever, and at one stage was the 6th most popular game on all of Xbox Live. More than that, it established the Japanese style of MMO. And when the decision was made in 2005 to start work on a sequel, the new MMO was built around things that made 11 successful, focusing, like most Final Fantasy games do, on beautiful graphics and an interesting battle system. This new game was to be directed and produced by the same duo that shipped 11, series veteran Hiromichi Tanaka and Nobuaki Komodo. Final Fantasy XIV was announced for Windows and PlayStation 3 in 2009, but behind the scenes the development team was struggling to put the pieces of its new world together.
Final Fantasy XIV のその最初のバージョンの自分が見た時に一番大きな問題点、最終的にそれが問題だったと考えて、その最初のコンセプトとしてそのプランナーがスクリプトを書くことによってゲームを作っていこう。で利点としては、プランナーが考えて自分たちで実装するんで高速な開発ができる。要はそうじゃないと基本的にはプランナーさんものを考えて
Interesting. Okay.
開発者とエンジニアに相談してどう実装するかを決めて。
That's like engineer talk that like flies over my head, but I kind of get the basic gist of what he's saying.
ゲームデザインをする人はそのどういうパラメータをいじりたいかとかを相談しながらエンジニアと話をしてものを作っていかなきゃいけないんですけれども、そこの部分に関してスクリプトを導入すると自分で考えて自分で実現することができるようになるっていう発想でゲーム実装の大半がスクリプトで組まれてたんですね。でそのスクリプト UI の問題もそうなんですけれども、ゲームも UI も基本的にはスクリプトで書かれていて、でスクリプトを動かすエンジン側がかなり負荷が高いというかCPU をたくさん使わないと動かない。
So the plants would eat up your CPU usage. Yep, I remember those.
非常に
I mean, not personally, but like from the videos I watched.
すぐにサーバーが回るサイクルが遅くなっていくっていうことが問題。
Can you imagine that the plant was like the plant taking up that much CPU usage? I'm like that gave me the plant is my sleep paralysis demon. Terrifying.
サーバーでできることはあとゲームとしてサーバーで実現できるところは少ないですし、何かしようとすると負荷が上がっちゃうんで、じゃあそれを回避するためにどうしようとかっていうことで、結果的にそのゲーム内容としてリッチなものが実現できなくなっているってことが起きてましたね。で UI もスクリプトで組まれていたので、なんかちょっと処理するだけでもすごい時間がかかるっていうような問題が発生していました。
Like I mentioned before, again, localization being in a position where we get to see all the parts come together first. We were some of the first to realize that, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
That type of situation. I mean, you had the battle team. They're like, yes, we have this great battle system, with stamina and these things that you can do. And then you had the story team. Like, yes, we have this story. Oh, hey, we have these guild leads and all of these parts. And everyone was really, really proud of the parts. Look at this grass. It's so beautiful. Look at this barrel. It's the most beautiful barrel ever to be, represented in graphical form.
The sexiest barrel ever.
It's got as many polygons as the character.
Yes. And all of those parts, all of these teams, again, very, very proud of their work. I mean, the team was, put together with some of the best minds in Square Enix. You had people that were, leads that could probably even, lead their own projects, were all come together, and it became a lot of just tiny little groups making something that was really great. But once you put it together, it was kind of a mess. And no one really knew that. except for localization and probably QA as well. And we're like, okay, we need to do something, but by then it was one of those, it's
been built.
Too late to do anything.
Yeah, it's already been built.
But for us, we would be looking at the text, and some of it, it wouldn't make sense, or it would just be very bland, and thinking, if there's any way to make this game better, what can we do? It's like, well, I can take this text and maybe add some more stuff into it, add some more flavor to it, and
he's a fucking genius. So he's presented with a problem, and he's already thinking, okay, we have limited resources, what we have, and we're limited resources in time. But what can I do? What is something that I can at least contribute to, at least make this even 5% better? That's what he's thinking. Even tiny bits, but even small or larger bits better. Is a genius.
Maybe that will distract people from the fact that the battle is not that fun.
At a fundamental level, the piecemeal design of the game was causing problems. Graphics were inconsistent. While many elements of the world were copy and pasted ad nauseum, some environmental objects had as many polygons and shaders as a character model. The battle system was just confusing. The game didn't have elements fundamental to most modern MMOs, things like jumping, auto-attack, and the ability to interact with the map using a mouse. It had a system that nerfed hardcore players to make sure they didn't let...
Yeah, there was a system in place that, the fatigue system, I think. So I had a take on this before in my other video. Basically, you're trying to make it so that the hardcore players don't get to the end game content because you didn't have any end game content because there was nothing planned. So the fatigue system, or there wasn't planned, but like there wasn't much to be found, and the fatigue system was frustrating because if people are paying to play your game, but you want to cap them, but it inadvertently creates a situation where it's like they're just giving you money to wait so they can get what they want, and that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible.
Level up too fast. The UI was confusing, crafting was incredibly complex and took forever, and simply there just wasn't enough content. The closed beta wasn't going well. They needed more time to fix these problems,
in despair.
So the open beta was pushed back to within a month before launch.
Oh,
the team knew there were problems, and they were getting frustrated.
Is
it weird that like that little statement there, the deadline just gives me anxiety?
2010年の1月から、実際にリリースされる 8月ぐらいまでの間にやっていたことで、ゲームが本当に良くないっていうのがこう、みんなに認識されて自覚されていくっていうのは結局ベータが始まって製品版が始まって、8月9月10月ぐらいまでの期間に起きたことなんですね。で、実際にはこうチーム内の意識としてもリリース前、そのベータが始まる前から本当にこれをリリースしていいものかどうかっていう議論はある程度そのチーム全体でそのオフィシャルであったわけではないですけれども、開発者の中ではやはりその世に出していいクオリティかどうかっていうところは議論がありました。
When 1.0 was getting made, was the mentality that we're not like that's like their thing and we have our very own successful thing over here, we're going to just make another one of those.
Right, and that's really what it felt like, is that we're going to continue doing what we did because it succeeded before, why wouldn't it succeed again? And seeing that direction, them taking that direction, and knowing that, having worked on 11, that yes, they were very successful, seeing the success that they had with Final Fantasy XI, seeing these great creators, creating something that was, revolutionary. But then on the other hand, knowing that what they were doing was, but maybe that worked 6 or 7 years ago, but a lot of things have changed since then.
Yeah.
And, I think
the mentality of like the last one worked, why won't this one work? It's like that's such a dangerous path to take there.
Guy on the localization team that got to that point where he just got so frustrated that he just wrote this scathing mail and sent it out to the whole team before telling anyone else on localization he was going to write it. And then we all get it at the same time, the devs team. We're reading, it's like, wow, this is really terrible. I hope he doesn't. Oh, he sent it to the whole team.
Oh, shit.
Because he just got really frustrated because he could, to him, they were being very stubborn. They weren't, they hadn't moved on. Whereas the rest of the world had moved on and adapted, with the release of WoW and what they had done. Whereas, the team here was like, no, we're going to stick with what we know, and that's good enough.
That's so dangerous, man.
Start feeling more concerning the situation. This is not fixed. not fixed, you announced the launch date, but it's not fixed. So, but still, some major portion of people are still thinking, believing, no, it's better, still better. Last phase, but still better. So it could be.
Give me anxiety hearing this.
Change it at the launch timing.
Jeez,
kind of went from thinking, okay, this project's going to be great, to, there might be some problems. Can we fix them? Can we fix them? Okay, we can't fix them. Is there anything we can do? I don't know. It was
Koji is a prodigy,
it was a
man.
very taxing experience.
He's at least trying. He's trying to think of something, anything.
The game's beta problems were simply that, the same issues that most MMOs have, ones that could be fixed with patches once the game entered live operations. And so Final Fantasy XIV Online launched on September 30th, 2010. It sold well its first week, and after a month had over 600,000 players swarming into its world. But it didn't take long for the cracks to appear. The problems in the beta were echoed by new players. The game was sluggish, the servers crashed, and the Eorzeans quickly ran out of things to do. Quests were limited, and the fatigue system even made grinding for XP next to impossible. Critics ate it alive too.
Let's get right down to it. Unless you've got the patience of Job or some kind of masochist, you shouldn't play Final Fantasy XIV. Its problems are so vast that I could spend hours talking about them. The awful interface, the recycled content, the stringent limits on questing, the useless maps, the stupid market ward, these issues and dozens more constantly have you asking that age-old question, what were they thinking?
Man, that's brutal.
What was it like seeing public reaction?
Yeah, it was very, very disheartening, because you'd want to look at those and you'd want to say, no, they don't understand, they don't know, what's going on here, or but deep down, you'd know they were right, and that was what kind of, that dagger in your heart and it's twisted, because you want to defend what you worked on. The people that I worked with are the greatest people. I still, work with a lot of
you got a lot of passionate people on that team. They're all very passionate. I guess we're getting to the point of maybe was it a corporate decision to rush this out the door, or did I miss that, or it's money. They wanted to release it because of money, and it's it sucks because you have all these passionate people who are working on this game. I made this comment before. I don't know if I would have had the heart or perseverance to go forward after hearing all these incredibly negative things about your work. Because at some point in time, you have to face the question, do I take this personally or do I not? And as a human being, it's difficult to not take it personally, especially when it's overwhelming, right? And the moment you take it personally and you think, your mind goes down the rabbit hole of it's an attack on me, it's hard to crawl out of that hole. Believe me, I know. I go through it regularly, right? We all do, really. It's rough. We know the outcome of it, and even today is great. It's just at that point in time when you're at your lowest, it's hard. I would imagine it was an insurmountable task to overcome this burden. It's just crazy.
I had worked with them before in FF11. I consider them not only coworkers but friends.
Yeah.
But and then you see people online, bashing the work they did, and I know how hard they worked.
Yes,
I know how many
exactly.
hours
That's what I was saying. Yep.
In the last 3 or 4 months, people were basically living at work, all putting their 100% into this game that was, destined to kind of crash and burn, and then to have people online just say, "Oh, that sucks. This person is a piece of shit, and their work is terrible." Dude, it hurts, but it hurts more because if I was not here and was a user and had played that game, I probably would have said the same thing.
そうですね。当時はね、私CFO やってたんで見てたんですけれども、ローンチのタイミングやっぱ一番大きく違ったのは11の時のいろいろごたごたねと9の14の時のごたごた一番違うっていうのは。11の時はいろいろごたごたあったけど、ゲームに関して言うとさすがに相当程度受け入れファン相当のやっぱり評価されたんですよね。でオペレーション上のトラブルとかっていろいろ多分あるっていうこれはある程度つきもので大変だったんですけれども、それはあったんですけど、
sure, but the scale was much higher.
非常に評価されたというふうに理解してますけれども、前作の場合の一番やっぱ 私はちょっとまずいなこれって思ったのはやっぱりゲーム自体の評価が非常に厳しいものだったということですね。これはちょっとやっぱり相当大丈夫かなというのを、ローンチした後ね、やっぱりそこはね非常にリアルに感じましたね。それはそうですね、しばらく経って、そんなに長い期間じゃなかったですね。そうしばらくなんでやっぱり相当なこのままで大丈夫なのかっていう社内でも相当やっぱり議論がありましたからね。
I mean, the first few months was just an endless stream of translating apology mails from producers and directors and finding out, trying to figure out different ways of saying we're sorry, because the more you say it, the less weight it has. But Japan being a country where people apologize a lot, that's part of the culture. But then trying to translate that, okay, this is the 10th time I've said sorry in this one post, and then from the American myself, like
Americans aren't as forgiving.
Insincere, the more you apologize.
Yeah, Americans are not as
explain that to the team. It's like, no, we have to apologize. Like, yes, you have to apologize.
Are not as forgiving.
And it just became, we weren't talking about the game anymore. We were talking about how to translate apologies, and it seemed like that lasted for a couple months.
Actually, we see a huge drop. I mean, right after the launch timing, we got some good number of the subscribers. Then that fall. I mean, as you can imagine. So I mean, it was failure, and we announced a failure. So we see lots of decline.
さっきも話した通り、実際に開発内でも今リリースすべきかっていうかリリースできるクオリティにあるかっていうのはベータ直前とかベータが始まってもそうなんですけど常に疑問はあったのでリリースして実際にただそれまでにチーム内にあった空気はやはり出したら意外と受け入れられる可能性があるんじゃないかっていう漠然とした出せばどうにかなるのかも自分たちが思っているほど悪くないのかもっていう何の根拠もない希望的なものがあったんですよ。で出た結果結局そんな魔法は起きなくてやはり自分たちが感じている通りにまだ世に出すには早いというか世に出せるクオリティに達していない商品を出してしまったっていう気持ちはみんなにあったので実際に改善しなきゃっていうか
I would be losing some sleep.
根本的に対応しなきゃいけないっていうところはチーム内に割とすぐ広がったと思って
I'd be losing some sleep
特
for
にす
sure.
ごいそんなことはないっていう意見がすごく強くあって誰かを説得しなきゃいけないみたいなことは特になかったですね。
You can see the pain in their faces, man. Like recalling this time, like you can it broke
Today,
them.
Square Enix is based across multiple floors in a modern office complex in Shinjuku, Tokyo. It's a company that is often designing multiple projects at once. And while Final Fantasy XIV was being developed, in another part of the building, a different game was being made. Produced by a Final Fantasy fan, his name,
the prodigal son arrives.
最初はファミリーコンピューター
Your boy.
US だとエンターテインメントシステムかのマリオブラザーズが一番最初にプレイしたゲームです。とにかくテレビの中、テレビっていうのは見るものだと思っていた子供の時に。ところがマリオブラザーズで初めてコントローラーを握って。
I might be a boomer here, but if your first game was Mario Bros, I want to know because it was mine.
ゲームをプレイした時にまずそもそもテレビのものを
Mario Bros was my first game ever
ってことがものすごいショックで友達の家でプレイさせてもらったんだけどものすごい興奮したのを覚えてます。ドラゴンクエストっていう日本で RPG
I've never played Dragon Quest.
タイトル
I'd like to try it though.
触った時にアクションではないゲーム数字のやり取りでこんなにまたさらにゲームは面白くなるんだっていうの特にストーリーラインがあって
Didn't Akira Toriyama do the art for Dragon Quest, or was that Chrono Cross or Trigger? I don't remember. The Dragon Ball creator.
受けて RPG っていうジャンルにものすごくフォーカスしていくことになったかなとは思います。当然翌年に出たファイナルファンタジーにも映画的な演出ファンタジーをより強く打ち出したっていうところにもすごい衝撃を受けてたので、やっぱり僕の中でドラゴンクエストとファイナルファンタジーっていうのはすごい大きかったですね、当時。
Like most Japanese players at the time, Yoshida San played all the early Final Fantasy games. He holds them in high regard. though he still holds the bitter memory of not being able to save before the last dungeon in
Oh,
Final
no!
Fantasy III. But
No!
when he was 11 years old, a brand new type of gaming experience arrived at home. His uncle gave him a PC. On this PC, the young gamer learned how to program BASIC. His first video game centered around trying to break into a bank vault. But this PC also exposed him to a spectrum of gaming that eluded most Japanese players. Western role-playing games.
Yeah,
he fell in love with games like Diablo.
Hey, there it is. There it is, Diablo.
で、その翌年にウルティマオンラインをベータからプレイし、先輩にとにかくすげえゲームあるって言われて、ウルティマオンラインをベータから始めたのが初めて MMO をプレイした。
I never played Ultima though. I've never played that game.
で、やっぱり同じようなその3回目の衝撃、3000人が同時に一つの世界で遊ぶっていうのがもうとてつもないまた衝撃でしたね。まあウルティマは本当に自由度のウルティマオンラインは特にとにかく初期は自由度がめちゃくちゃ高いゲームだったので、そのいわゆるロードの称号をつけたその
Very gentleman-like
すごく紳士的なというかコミュニティリーダー的プレイをするキャラクターと完全に悪のプレイヤーキラーをやるキャラクターを2つ作ってどっちもものすごい遊んでたし
That's too funny.
やっぱりその MMORPG っていうゲームがどう作られているのかどういったエンジニアリングが必要なのかっていうのもものすごいそこで勉強させてもらったと思います。もうその頃からはコンソールと同じぐらいの比重で PC でゲームをかなり遊ぶようになってたので自分で PC パーツ買ってきて組み立てたりしてたしやっぱりそのあたりで FPS もかなりプレイし始めてたし特に 3DMMO のスタートであるエヴァクエストその後プレイをし始めて当時エヴァクエストのパッケージを日本で手に入れるのが本当に大変で出張で東京に来た時に秋葉原をね時間を作ってゾンビのように店をこううろうろしてエヴァクエストってゲームないですか、ね、エヴァクエストってないですかって
I remember EverQuest though. I didn't play it.
Yoshida San would embark on
the Akira Toriyama designs.
Square Enix
there you
to work
go.
On the Dragon Quest series.
Yep.
Though he wasn't working on the Final Fantasy team, he was part of the umbrella group that was allocating programmers to various projects. He didn't have granular visibility on FF14, but he knew the team was struggling. I asked from his perspective as a producer where he thought the game's problems were coming from.
まあわかんないこれ広報にカットされるのかもしれないけど、クリスタルツールズって呼ばれるミドルウェアを全社で
being cut by corporate. The middleware, the crystal tools. I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
各なんだろうゲームラインから招集されて、そのメインプログラマーがみんないないっていう状態になってしまったので、どのプロジェクトもものすごい大変な時期だった。
The motion capture in 1.0 is so fucking good though.
14がああなったってしまった理由の一つ。
Like that's like the one thing, and I guess maybe it gets better in Heavensward. And I'm gonna look back on this video like years later and be like, yeah, it probably did. But like I noticed 1.0 had some really, really good motion capture cutscenes, and I know ARR was it's a bit stiff. I know it gets better, but like I'm just blown away by these cutscenes and like how well and fluid everybody moves in them. It's so good.
あるかなとは思いますね。さらに2つ大きな問題がそこに絡まっていて、スクエアエニックスその全体に
Yo, Final Fantasy X though. Final Fantasy X was my very first Final Fantasy that I played. I didn't have a PlayStation at the time when I was a kid. I had a N64, and then my friend who also played Diablo and Civ had a PS2, and he had a PlayStation as well. And I remember I would go to his house and I would play Final Fantasy X. And I remember how much I didn't grasp the concept of how RPGs work and grinding. I didn't understand the full level up system. And I remember as a kid, I got to the point of Mount Gagazet. I think it was like the final Seymour. No, the second final Seymour fight where you fight Seymour on like the snowy mountains. I forget. It's been a while. I got to that fight with Seymour and he rolled me. And I remember I kept trying and I couldn't do it. And I just quit. Because, you know, little Chad didn't really understand that you need to like go kill mobs and level up. And I remember I put the game down for like a year and then I came back to it. and something just made me pick it up again. And I picked up the game again, and I just kind of was like, okay, maybe I should like train or like level up. So I killed mobs, and I got strong enough to beat Seymour, and then I would eventually go on to beat the game. And it's like crazy. I kind of wonder what would happen if I didn't beat the game, if I didn't go back and actually learn my lesson from that. I don't know who I'd be today if I didn't eventually come back to FF10 at that time. And it's crazy because like I just gave up. I don't know what was up with me at the time. I was just like, I don't feel like doing this. And now I'm like, you gotta grind for it.
PlayStation 2のジェネレーションで本当に世界一クオリティ、グラフィックスのクオリティが高い、そしてゲームエクスペリエンスがものすごく詰まったゲームっていうのをたくさんリリースしたので、本当にこうなんていうんだろう、ある意味自信過剰にもうなっていた
The corporation became very arrogant. Oh, shots fired.
だし、自分たちのグラフィックスこそが
Dude, he's holding nothing back right here. Oh man, tell it like it is, Yoshi.
その作り方はその自分たちにしかできない。だから、なんだろう、でも超巨大な成功体験ってやっぱり足かせというかにもなる例だと思うんです。
You still have to try. You still gotta try.
ものすごくおごってた、まあ悪い言い方をすればおごってた時期だったと思うんですね。まず例えると、その刀を作る刀匠のような職人たちが本当にたくさんいて、彼らが一つずつを手作りで作って世界一のクオリティを作り上げていたんだけど、実は世界は、まあ、特にその北米を中心にテクノロジーでそれをカバーするっていうところをずっと追求してきた時期で、プレイステーション3の世代になった瞬間にテクノロジーの方がそれを上回るっていう時期が来たせいで、作り方を変えようとはしないし、だけどテクノロジーも追いつけないっていうことから、さらにそれを知ってるはずのプログラマーたちは
I mean, it's more about designing what you can within the scope and resources you have and not overshooting that. Even if the graphics aren't the best, I can promise you that most people are going to fall in love with the gameplay and the story if it's like top tier, right? If gameplay and story and presentation are like top tier, graphics are going to be a second or a third in their minds.
制作に行ってるっていう状態で。
That's how I feel. I don't care about graphics. If it's fun, I'll play it.
そのアーティストたちは自分たちの作り方こそが世界一だと思ってるので、古い作り方で引き続きものすごく負荷のかかるやり方でアセットを作ってたので、もうそれらが絡まってっていうのが、まあもう一つの大きな、さっき2つあるって言った問題の1つ目がそれですね。もう一つはプライドはいついかなる時でもとても大切なものだとは思うんですけど、そこにやっぱり超巨大な成功体験をしたっていうこと自体が乗っかってきちゃうと、
when you stop trying, that's your downfall.
自分たちの作るゲームこそがベストであって、他をあんまり見る必要がないっていう時期でもあったんじゃないかなと思っていて、例えば当時世界多分 MMORPG を知ってる人に
World of Warcraft, yep.
世界最大の MMORPG は何ですかって言ったら、100人に聞いたら100人がワールド・オブ・ウォークラフトって言ったはずなのに、誰もプレイしてない、開発チームが。これはワールド・オブ・ウォークラフトを知ってるか知ってないかっていう話だけの話をしてるんじゃなくて、その自分たちが世の中に対して新しいそのビデオゲームをリリースしようとするときに、ライバルになるタイトルは何だろうとか、ユーザーは今
Mr. Pandaria.
どこにそのゲーム
I don't give a shit people say. Mr. Pandaria was I enjoyed it.
プレイしてるんだろうっていうのを知らないっていうのが、その
I enjoyed it.
感覚として僕には結構信じられない。なんでもっとみんなゲームプレイしないの？だって自分たちが今どのあたりにいるか分かんなくなっちゃうよっていうのが、まあ言いたい。で、特に14の場合に関しては、もちろんファイナルファンタジー11の超巨大な成功体験っていうのが邪魔をしたっていうのもあるとは思うんだけど、あの当時はエヴァークエストを徹底的にプレイをして、だからこそ11を作ったはずなのに、新しいレストランを
I kind of want to play that game
オ
actually.
ープンするときに、隣にあるレストランがどんなメニューを出していて、どんなサービスをしているかを知らずにレストラン作る、開店する人はいないんじゃない？
Good analogy, yep.
So, just at the launch stage then of 1.0, what was the feeling within Square Enix? The beta was quite close to launch. Were people anticipating that there would be negative feedback, or were they less aware that
This answer's important, I feel like.
僕は他のチームにいてすごくベータの評判が悪いっていうのはネットでニュースは見てましたね。ただ多かれ少なかれ MMORPG のローンチは絶対に荒れやすい、そうサーバーがすぐ落ちるとか、ストレステストをやってるけどプレイヤーの方は遊びたいからやっぱりサーバーが落ちるとやっぱりすごく文句を言って当然だと思いますし、だから僕もやっぱり11を作ったチームだから、そうは言っても11のやっぱり完成度が高いので、そこと比較をしてあの機能がないこの機能がないっていう話をしてるのかなっていうふうに思ってた。僕は僕自身の開発が忙しかったのもあって、ただそれも少しずつ収まっていくんだろうなっていうふうに僕は当時は見てた。ただ別の角度、今度はそのオリジナルの14チームの中の視点としては、このままだと本当にまずいもっと時間をかけて品質を上げないとっていう、もちろん声を上げる人たちもいた。
Yeah, that's the kill zone right there if you keep going forward like that.
全体の判断としてはファイナルファンタジー11のスタートもそうだったと。機能たくさんなかったし、ものすごくネガティブなフィードバックもたくさん来たけど、パッチでどんどん直していって11は完成したんだから14も大丈夫だと、最初は絶対こうなんだっていう風に判断したのでベータを終わらせてリリースへ踏み切ったっていうのが当時のジャッジだったって、僕はチームに入ってからインタビューをしてそれを確認したので、チームの中ではやっぱり議論はあったそうです。あのままじゃダメ、まずいっていう話は。
The ship was sinking.
最終的なジャッジは今お話しした通り、11の時もそうだった。でも11だってずっとパッチを続けてああなったじゃないか。
Oh man.
Eventually, corporate realized that this wasn't usual launch problems, so they called on a few select members of the team to create a task force. This task force would research what changes the game needed and the resources the development environment would require to do the work. Members of that team would talk to Yoshida San about their worries after hours. His thoughts were that the current organizational structure would need to be modified if the team was going to make the changes required. In October of 2010, Yoshida San talked to the then Square Enix president Yoichi Wada and suggested they initiate a company-wide emergency to get the team the resources they needed. Wada San spent a few days talking to the 14 development team about their concerns, and while a lot of the team had suggested that the current task force was in fact up to the task, some members of the 14 team had pleaded to have Yoshida-san join the project to help. And so it transpired that in late November, corporate took the decision to remove Hiromichi Tanaka from the team and move Nobuaki Komodo from director to lead designer. Both of their vacant positions would be filled by Yoshida-san. At that time, he was leading a team that was working on an original IP for Square Enix. He was disappointed to leave that team, but excited for the opportunity to work on one of the company's crown jewels, a numbered Final Fantasy game. So, he got right to work.
やらなきゃいけないことが当時3つあると思ってて、
Dude, this man just rallies people together.
まずそのチームに、
That's his power.
オリジナルのチームにトップが変わります。で、あとそのタスクフォースメンバーもそのまま開発コアとしてリードに入りますっていう当然話をしなきゃいけない全チームに。ただ僕はドラゴンクエスト側のゲームを開発することが多かったので、
So he went in blind. He didn't know anybody.
というか、
he didn't know anybody.
スタッフはいたけど、その一緒に仕事したことがある人がほとんどいなかったので、まず
Dude, rapport is so important when working with people too.
で、一度も
And you have so much time to build it.
ないから、どんな仕事をする人間なのかを見てくれればいいよってまず。で、こいつダメだと思ったらチーム抜けて構わないからっていう話を最初にして、一緒に仕事してみようでも一回。
He wasn't like as cut and dry as at
ダメだと思ったら
first
本
was.
当すぐ抜けて構わないから3ヶ月ぐらいまず一緒にやろうよっていう話を僕スピーチでした記憶があります。で、
Yoshi P really is a warrior of light.
チャレンジするよ。当然その時申請するなんて話はまだ計画がなかったので、とにかく立て直しをやるよと、ギブアップはしないよっていう話をした時に、僕を知ってる何人かはよしやるぞっていう人たちと、 もういい、もう無理だよっていう人たちと、
This man saved this game.
なんだよこの
almost single-handedly
まあ怒ってる
in the decision-making process at least.
っていうのが大体のその時の雰囲気でしたね。まあそんな中で今も14のサウンドディレクターやってる曽健が、まあその話をしてた時と大きなホールだったんですけど、2階のサウンドブースで僕のマイクの調整とかやってくれてて、その曽健があいつだけですよやり直すっていうか、リベンジするぞって言ったらガッツポーズしてたのはあいつだけです。今でも覚えてますよ。2階席でおっしゃーってやってたんであいつ。
I saw both reactions. I saw the, oh my God, we just went through a year of hell, and now he's asking us to go through a year and a half of hell to this point. That
Bro, he's literally asking them, walk through the gates of hell with me. But I promise you, it'll be worth it. Walk with me through hell, and I promise you, the prize will be ours. But it will be a painful journey. Not many of you will make it. That's what he was saying, basically.
Might, be another failure because no one had taken.
I don't know what I would do. I have no idea what I would do. Like, think of it. You went through a year of hell, and this crazy man walks up and says, "Hey, I got a plan, but you got to put your blind trust in me." And you're like, well, what the fuck what else are we gonna do? Like, what else can we do besides trust him or just walk away from this? I would need a break. I would need a good break from this, I think, before I make the decision.
We built it in this manner before. So basically saying like, yeah, you just have to trust me, and yeah, you could, waste another year and a half of your life and it could be a failure, and, but you're gonna have to believe me on this one. And so, yeah, a lot of people are like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know. And I can understand that because, again, it was a gamble. But then on the other hand, there were, a lot of us, myself included, a lot of people on the team that
things
were
to weigh on.
No, we worked so hard on this, and we did our jobs the best that we could.
Yeah.
But for a lot of, reasons, some circumstances that were out of our control. Decisions made by higher ups, decisions made by other teams that affected our work, and nothing that we could do about it. But we had put our all into it, and we were invested in the project. We still believed in the project. To have someone from the outside come in, and not just come in to say, okay, forget it, we're just going to do it my way or the highway.
Yeah.
It's like, he asked our opinions. He laid out a roadmap. He gave
bless
us a
this
vision
man
and a hope, and even though it seemed like it would be difficult to achieve, it didn't seem inconceivable.
Yoshi P knew there was no time to wait. He worked with corporate to make sure the team had time off, both for them to relax, but also to give him time to build his new vision, to do research playing other MMOs, and to help draft his plan, to deliver the vision and how the team was going to do it. They had very little time to fix this game, so once they started, the specifications document would have to be watertight. And as captain of the ship, he needed to be able to answer every question the team may have, quickly.
Yoshida San was now at the helm of his first Final Fantasy, and as an avid MMO fan, he was looking forward to getting in there and fixing it. What he couldn't have known at this stage was the scale of the job ahead of him, that no matter how much they patched Final Fantasy XIV online, they couldn't ever fix it. What they had to do was something that no developer had ever done, to rebuild an entire MMO while the original version was still running.
I don't think that they realized immediately that it was something that couldn't be solved via patches. I think they still believe that, if we patch it, it'll be fine. And it wasn't until they reevaluated and then brought in, the new blood. Yoshida San came in and told them, okay, yeah, this is not something that can be patched. If we want to fix this, we're going to have to take a drastic step.
Yeah, burn
Yoshida
it all down.
spent 7 weeks researching and returned with 2 options for corporate.
7 weeks.
It was then he realized that it would be impossible to convert the current game into an MMO that could last the test of time. Ultimately, though, this was a decision that corporate had to make. So he returned with not 1, but 2 plans. Plan A and Plan B.
This guy is
During
a
this
legend.
meeting, he explained that Plan A would be to patch the game and make it more playable, but that ultimately the game would never really satisfy players, and though Square Enix may make their money back, the damage to the online brand would be catastrophic. And then there was Plan B.
Always Plan B.
今のファイナルファンタジー4、当時のオリジナルのファイナルファンタジー14をパッチを当てて、そのできる限りポジティブに遊べるものにしながら裏で全く新しいそのファイナルファンタジーを作り直すっていうのがプラン B で、まあその話だけを聞くと、まあそんなバカなってなるので当然 どうやってそれを達成するか、チームを2つに分けて。
Corporate would have bro, any other company out there in like the West, I feel like most companies would just be like, fuck it, just bleed it out, patch it until we put into like a legacy support and make the new game. It's still to this day blows my mind the fact that Square Enix was like, go on. At least they listened and here we are, right?
どういったそのマネジメントスタイルでそれをやるのか。で、大体発売時期はプレイステーション3版をリリースするっていうのがプレイヤーとの約束だったので、プレイステーション3の寿命が来る前にリリースしなきゃいけないので、2012年年末から2013年中には絶対リリースできるこの計画であればっていうプレゼンテーションをして、リスクは高い。ただ
The only other company I can think of that has done this is like No Man's Sky
しかも同じ
dev
タイト
team.
ルで作り直してるから成功うまくいったとしても成功するかどうかはわからない。
And that paid off greatly for them.
やっぱりファイナルファンタジーってクレイジーだねとかすごいことするねとか、少なくとも自分たちがミスしたことを認めて信頼を取り戻そうとしたっていう努力は見てくれてる人は多分見てくれるだろう。だからどっちをチョイスするかは会社に任せる。ただどっちであっても全力でやるよっていう話をプレゼンテーションして、まあ、結果的には、ね、
Option B
プラン B で
Plan B, man.
今こうなってます、ね。
Holy dude, this is like mystical.
Final
Very
Fantasy
mystical.
XIV 1.0 was in a state of disarray. Square Enix had decided to suspend subscriptions to help ease the negativity around the game, while the PS3 version was indefinitely postponed. For the next 2 years, Yoshida San and his team would work tirelessly on not one, but 2 MMOs, patching the original 1.0 to fans' expectations, while secretly working on a brand new version of Final Fantasy XIV. In our next episode, we focus on that 2-year period and tell the incredible story of the falling moon of Dalamud, the death of 1.0, and the birth of a new Eorzea.
Man, I am very glad I watched this. I am very, very glad I watched this. Dude, this was amazing. Thank you for making this. My potato ass leaving a comment. Most uneducated comment. Bro, this was good. I can't believe we have come so far. This music is so good too. Holy shit, dude. No wonder you guys have been telling me to watch this shit. No wonder you guys have been like, hey, watch this, dude. You need to watch this. Like, yeah, my mind is kind of, I feel very inspired right now. And that's a good thing. Dude, that's beautiful, man. I'm happy to be part of this community. I am happy to be here. You ever feel so small and like a particle in but a grander ocean? That's how I feel right now. It's crazy.